Story 1. The student who never left the library. College campuses are supposed to be some of the safest places in America. Security patrols, emergency phones, student housing, and buildings filled with people at all hours create the feeling that someone is always nearby. But once midnight passes and the crowds disappear, even familiar places can become unsettling. The following incident took place at a university in northern Ohio, and years later, the students involved still refused to study alone after dark. The university library stood at the center of campus, a massive 5-story building made of red brick and glass. During exam season, it remained open 24 hours a day. Students came and went at all hours, surviving on coffee, energy drinks, and pure desperation. On a cold November evening in 2022, 20-year-old Ethan Parker planned to spend the entire night studying for his final chemistry exam. By midnight, most of his friends had already returned to their dorms. Only a handful of students remained scattered across the library. The upper floors were nearly empty. Ethan preferred the 4th floor. It overlooked the center of campus and contained long rows of study tables hidden between enormous bookshelves. The silence helped him focus. At approximately 12:40 a.m., he noticed another student sitting near the windows. A young man, dark hoodie, baseball cap, laptop open in front of him. Nothing unusual. The stranger appeared completely focused on his work. Over the next hour, Ethan occasionally glanced in his direction. The student never moved. Not once. No trips to the restroom. No drinks. No phone. Nothing. He simply sat there, staring at the laptop screen. At first, Ethan assumed he was just extremely concentrated. Exam week made people behave strangely. Still, something about it felt off. Around 2 a.m., Ethan left to grab coffee from the vending machines downstairs. The entire building felt emptier than before. Only 2 students remained on the 1st floor. The security guard near the entrance nodded as Ethan passed. When Ethan returned to the 4th floor 15 minutes later, the young man remained exactly where he'd been. Same posture, same position, same open laptop. The screen itself appeared black. Not asleep, not displaying anything, just black. Yet the student continued staring at it. Ethan tried ignoring him. Another hour passed. The silence became unbearable. No keyboards clicking, no pages turning, nothing. Eventually, curiosity got the better of him. He stood up and walked toward the windows. As he approached, he noticed something strange. The student wasn't typing. His hands rested in his lap, completely still, and despite sitting beside a laptop for over 3 hours, the device wasn't plugged into a charger. Ethan slowed his pace. The closer he got, the more uncomfortable he felt. Then, without warning, the student slowly turned his head, not his body, just his head, and looked directly at Ethan. The expression on his face was perfectly normal, calm, almost polite, but his eyes looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in days. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then the student quietly asked a question. "What time does the library close?" The question immediately confused Ethan, because everyone on campus knew the answer during finals week. 24 hours. Still, Ethan politely explained that the building remained open all night. The student simply nodded, turned back toward the black laptop screen, and stopped moving again. Something about the interaction left Ethan deeply unsettled. At 2:30 a.m., he decided to pack up and leave. But before heading downstairs, he glanced back one final time. The student remained exactly where he'd been all night, motionless, watching the dark screen. As Ethan entered the elevator, he looked toward the security desk and casually mentioned the guy on the 4th floor. The security guard frowned, because according to him, the library had been completely empty above the 2nd floor since midnight. Because according to him, the library had been completely empty above the 2nd floor since midnight. Ethan laughed at first. He assumed the guards simply hadn't checked the upper levels. But the older man shook his head. Every hour, security performed routine walkthroughs. The 4th floor had been empty during every single inspection. The confidence in his voice immediately unsettled Ethan. Trying to prove his point, Ethan offered to take him upstairs. Together, they entered the elevator. The ride felt strangely quiet. When the doors opened onto the fourth floor, Ethan immediately looked toward the windows. The student was gone. The chair sat empty. The black laptop had vanished. Nothing remained. The security guard folded his arms. "Told you," he said. Embarrassed, Ethan apologized. Maybe exhaustion had gotten to him. Maybe he'd mistaken someone leaving while he was downstairs. It made sense. At least, that's what he told himself. Then they reached the study table, and Ethan stopped walking, because resting on the surface was a single notebook. Not his. The cover looked worn and faded, as though it had been carried around for years. The security guard picked it up. Inside, the first page contained only a name, Daniel Mercer. Below it sat a student identification number. The guard's expression immediately changed. Without saying a word, he closed the notebook, asked Ethan to follow him downstairs. Back at the security office, the guard called someone from campus administration. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes. When he hung up, he looked visibly uncomfortable. Daniel Mercer had been a chemistry student. He'd attended the university 12 years earlier, and according to campus records, he disappeared during finals week. His last confirmed location was the library, the fourth floor. No explanation was ever found. No evidence of foul play. No sightings afterward. Nothing. The case eventually went cold. Ethan felt sick, because everything matched. Chemistry student, dark hoodie, baseball cap, the same exhausted expression, the same fourth floor study area. Then he remembered the question. What time does the library close? The security guard quietly admitted something else. Back when Daniel disappeared, the library still closed at 2 a.m. The 24-hour schedule didn't begin until years later. Neither man spoke for several moments. Then Ethan asked the obvious question. Who had been sitting by the window? The guard didn't answer. Instead, he opened the old campus yearbook stored in his office, and after several minutes, found Daniel's photograph. Ethan's stomach immediately dropped, because it was him. The same face, the same tired eyes, the same person he'd spoken to less than an hour earlier. Terrified, Ethan never studied alone in the library again. But the story didn't end there. 3 weeks later, during finals, another student reported seeing someone sitting beside the fourth floor windows after 2 a.m. Dark hoodie, baseball cap, black laptop screen, motionless for hours. And according to that student, when she finally walked past him, he quietly asked a single question. What time does the library close? The university never officially acknowledged the stories. The old missing persons case remains unsolved. Yet every exam season, students still warn one another about the fourth floor. They say if you're studying late at night and notice someone sitting alone by the windows, don't approach them. Don't answer their questions. And whatever you do, don't sit at the table after they leave. Because if you do, you might find a worn notebook waiting for you. And inside the front cover, your own name might already be written there. Story 2. The dorm room across the hall. College dormitories are strange places. Hundreds of young adults live together, yet people often know very little about the students just a few doors away. Friendships form quickly, routines become familiar, and faces become part of everyday life. But sometimes, someone you've seen for months turns out to be someone nobody else remembers. The following incident took place at a university in North Carolina, and according to the student involved, it changed the way an entire dormitory viewed one particular room. Sophomore student Olivia Martinez moved into Hawthorne Hall at the start of her second year. The building was old, built during the early 1970s. Narrow hallways, heavy wooden doors, and heating systems that constantly made strange noises during winter. Still, it had character. Olivia lived in room 418, directly across from room 417. From the very first week, she noticed the student living there. A young woman, long dark hair, oversized gray hoodie, usually carrying books pressed against her chest. The girl rarely spoke to anyone, but she always offered a polite smile when passing in the hallway. Nothing seemed unusual. By October, Olivia had grown accustomed to seeing her. Sometimes late at night, sometimes early in the morning, always alone, always entering or leaving room 417. The strange part was that Olivia never actually learned her name. Most students introduced themselves within days of moving in. This girl never did. Yet nobody seemed bothered by it. She simply became part of the background. Another face in the building. One rainy Thursday evening during final season, Olivia returned from the library around 1 a.m. The hallway sat completely empty, except for the girl from room 417. She stood outside her door, motionless, holding several textbooks. At first, Olivia assumed she was looking for her key, but something felt off. The girl wasn't searching her pockets, wasn't knocking, wasn't using her phone. She simply stood there, facing the door. Olivia offered a friendly greeting. No response. After several seconds, the girl slowly turned around. The smile appeared again. Small, polite, almost forced. Then she quietly asked a question. Did they reopen the study rooms downstairs? The question seemed random. Olivia explained that the study rooms stayed open 24 hours during finals week. The girl stared for a moment. Confusion crossed her face, before softly replying that they used to close at midnight. Without another word, she entered room 417. The door shut. Olivia thought nothing more of it. The following afternoon, she mentioned the strange interaction to her roommate. The response immediately confused her. What girl? The one across the hall. Room 417. Her roommate looked genuinely puzzled. Nobody lives in 417. Olivia laughed. Obviously somebody did. She saw her almost every day. But after checking the dorm roster online, room 417 appeared vacant. No resident. No assigned student. Nothing. Assuming it was an administrative error, Olivia shrugged it off. Until later that evening. Because once again, the girl emerged from room 417, carrying books, walking slowly down the hallway, as though she'd always lived there. The girl emerged from room 417, carrying books, walking slowly down the hallway, as though she'd always lived there. Olivia stopped in her tracks. The girl smiled politely, the exact same smile as before, then disappeared toward the stairwell. Determined to prove she wasn't imagining things, Olivia pulled out her phone and quickly snapped a photograph down the hallway. The girl remained visible in the distance. Gray hoodie, dark hair, books in her arms. Perfect. Evidence. That night, she proudly showed the picture to her roommate and immediately felt her stomach drop. Because in the photograph, the hallway was empty. No girl, no books, nothing. Just the closed door of room 417. At this point, Olivia genuinely began questioning herself. Stress, lack of sleep, finals week. Maybe she was simply exhausted. Still, curiosity refused to let the matter go. The following afternoon, she visited the resident advisor. When she mentioned the student in room 417, the RA looked confused. Room 417 had been locked all semester. Maintenance issues, water damage. Nobody had been allowed inside since August. Olivia insisted she saw someone entering and leaving almost daily. The RA eventually agreed to accompany her upstairs. When they reached the 4th floor, Olivia pointed toward the door. The girl stood there, exactly as before, holding her books, facing the hallway. Olivia immediately turned to the RA. Do you see her? The RA frowned. See who? The words hit like ice water. Because from the RA's perspective, nobody stood outside room 417. The hallway was empty, and yet Olivia could still see her. Perfectly. The girl slowly looked toward Olivia, smiled, then entered the room. The door clicked shut. Without hesitation, the RA unlocked it. Both stepped inside. Dust covered everything. Plastic sheets protected old furniture. Water stains marked parts of the ceiling. Nobody had lived there for months. No clothes, no bedding, no books, nothing. The room was completely abandoned. Olivia felt physically ill. Then she noticed something resting on the windowsill. A single student ID card. The photograph showed the same young woman. Long dark hair, gray hoodie. The name beneath it read, Emily Carter. The RA's expression immediately changed. Very quietly, she picked up the card, because she recognized the name. Emily Carter had attended the university 6 years earlier, a junior studying literature. During finals week, she disappeared. Her last confirmed location had been Hawthorne Hall, room 417. According to campus records, Emily left for a late-night study session and never returned. No evidence, no suspects, no explanation. The case remained unsolved. Olivia couldn't speak. The face on the ID was identical to the girl she'd been greeting for months. Same smile, same eyes, same oversized hoodie. That evening, Olivia searched old student forums online and discovered something unsettling. Every few years, someone mentioned seeing a girl in gray walking the fourth-floor hallway during finals season. Always carrying books, always alone, always asking strange questions about campus facilities that no longer existed. Questions like, what time does the library close? Did they reopen the study rooms downstairs? Is the cafeteria still open after 10? Details that belonged to an older version of the university. The following week, Olivia moved to another dorm. She never wanted to see room 417 again. But on her final night in Hawthorne Hall, she woke around 2 a.m. to the sound of footsteps outside her door. Soft, unhurried, moving across the hallway. Curiosity got the better of her. She looked through the peephole. The girl stood outside room 417, books pressed against her chest, waiting. Then, as though sensing someone watching, she slowly turned toward Olivia's door. The familiar smile appeared, and in a quiet voice that somehow carried through the hallway, she asked one final question. Do you know if my roommate came back yet? The next morning, Olivia learned something she wished she'd never discovered. Emily Carter's roommate had vanished 2 weeks after Emily disappeared. Both cases remain unsolved. And according to students who still live in Hawthorne Hall, whenever finals season arrives and the building grows quiet after midnight, a girl in a gray hoodie can sometimes be seen walking the 4th floor, still carrying her books, still waiting for someone to return to room 417. Story 3. The Campus Security Alert. Universities send out emergency alerts for all kinds of reasons. Severe weather, missing students, suspicious activity, or accidents around campus. Most students read the notification, stay indoors for a while, and move on with their lives. But occasionally, an alert arrives that nobody can explain. The following incident took place at a university in western Pennsylvania, and according to the students who received it, the message should never have existed in the first place. 21-year-old Noah Bennett lived in a dormitory near the edge of campus. It was late October, midterm season, the kind of week where students survived on caffeine and very little sleep. Around 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, Noah and 3 friends gathered in his room to prepare for an economics exam. By midnight, 2 of them had already given up and returned to their own dorms. Only Noah and his roommate, Caleb, remained awake. The campus outside looked unusually quiet. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Streetlights reflected off wet pathways. Almost nobody walked outside. At 12:47 a.m., both students received an emergency notification. The familiar campus alert system sound echoed through the room. The message read, Security notice. Avoid the Eastern Pedestrian Bridge until further notice. An individual has been reported standing on the bridge for several hours. Do not approach. Campus police have been notified. Noah frowned. The Eastern Bridge connected the dormitories to the academic buildings. Hundreds of students used it every day. The wording felt strange. Not dangerous, just strange. Someone standing on a bridge didn't usually trigger an emergency alert. Caleb laughed. Probably some drunk student, he said. Still, curiosity got the better of them. Noah opened social media. Students across campus had already begun discussing it. Some claimed police vehicles were heading toward the bridge. Others joked about ghosts and urban legends. Nobody seemed genuinely concerned. Then another notification arrived. Exactly 12 minutes later. Updated security notice. The individual remains on the eastern bridge. Please remain indoors if possible. The wording immediately felt different. More urgent. More personal. No description. No explanation. Just the individual. As though everyone already knew who they meant. Unable to resist, Noah opened the live campus webcam system. Several public cameras overlooked major walkways. One camera faced the eastern bridge. The image loaded. Rain covered the lens. Streetlights illuminated the pathway. And standing in the exact center of the bridge was a person, motionless, dark clothing, hands at their sides, completely still. The sight immediately unsettled both roommates. Not because the figure looked threatening, but because, according to the timestamp, the camera had been live for nearly 3 hours, and the person hadn't moved an inch. No pacing, no phone, no sitting down, nothing, just standing, watching the far end of the bridge. At 1:20 a.m., a third notification arrived. The message was shorter, far shorter. Do not acknowledge the individual if seen. Noah stared at the screen. Caleb stopped laughing. Because that wasn't normal university language. That sounded like something entirely different. Then, almost simultaneously, both received a text message from another friend living across campus. The message contained only 5 words. Why is he looking at me? Attached was a photograph taken from a dormitory window and standing beneath a street lamp near the eastern bridge. The same motionless figure appeared to be facing directly toward the building. The same motionless figure appeared to be facing directly toward the building. Noah felt his stomach tighten. The photograph had been taken only seconds earlier. Rain blurred parts of the image, but there was no mistaking it. The person had moved. At least, that's what Noah thought. Because according to the campus webcam, the figure still stood in the center of the bridge. Motionless. Exactly where it had been for hours. Yet somehow, it also appeared beneath a street lamp on the opposite side of campus. Caleb immediately called their friend. The response made things worse. The student sounded genuinely frightened. He claimed the person had been staring directly at his dorm window for nearly 15 minutes. Not moving, not walking, just standing. Then, while still on the phone, his voice suddenly dropped. He's gone. Silence followed. A few seconds later, another sentence. No, he's on the bridge again. The call ended. At 1:34 a.m., campus police scanners began appearing online. Students listening in reported something strange. Officers repeatedly arrived at the eastern bridge, yet nobody could find anyone there. The moment they reached the location, the individual vanished, only to be reported somewhere else minutes later. Always standing, always motionless, always watching. Then another emergency notification arrived. This one immediately unsettled everyone. Security update. Remain inside residence halls. Do not approach anyone standing alone near academic buildings. If approached, continue walking and contact campus security immediately. No physical description accompanied the message. No photograph. Nothing. As though the university wanted students to recognize the person on site. At 2 a.m., Noah refreshed the campus webcam. The bridge was empty. Rain continued falling. No movement. No figure. Relieved, he assumed the situation had finally ended. Then Caleb quietly pointed toward the window. Across the courtyard, near an emergency phone station, someone stood beneath the light. Dark clothing, hands at their sides, completely still, the exact same posture, the exact same silhouette. And somehow, facing directly toward their dorm room. Neither student spoke. The distance made details impossible to identify. Yet both understood one thing. Whatever stood outside wasn't moving. Minutes passed. Still there. Then Noah's phone buzzed again. Not an emergency alert. A text message. Unknown number. The message contained only one sentence. Do not wave. His blood turned cold. Nobody else had his number. Nobody outside should know they were watching. Terrified, Noah locked the dorm room door. Neither student approached the window again. Around 2:20 a.m., another campus-wide notification arrived. This one would later disappear from university records entirely. The message read, "Final security notice. The individual has entered Morton Hall. Remain inside until further instruction." Morton Hall sat directly across from Noah's building. An old humanities center closed after midnight. Nobody should have been inside. Students immediately flooded social media. Some claimed they saw police surrounding the entrance. Others insisted the building remained empty. No photographs matched. No stories aligned. Then, without warning, every campus alert vanished. Gone from phones. Gone from email records. Gone from the university app. As though none of them had ever been sent. At sunrise, Noah visited campus security. The officer behind the desk looked confused. There had been no emergency overnight. No incident reports. No suspicious person. Nothing. When Noah showed screenshots from his phone, the officer fell silent. Because the university logo displayed on the notifications wasn't the current version. It was an older design. One retired nearly 15 years earlier. Disturbed, Noah began searching archived student newspapers. Eventually, he found an article from 2009. The headline described a missing graduate student. The student had last been seen standing on the Eastern Pedestrian Bridge during a severe rainstorm. Witnesses reported something unsettling. For hours, he remained motionless, ignoring everyone, watching the campus, before eventually walking into Morton Hall. He was never seen again. No body, no explanation, no evidence. The case remained unsolved. Attached to the article was a photograph. Noah immediately recognized the silhouette. Dark jacket, hands at his sides, standing perfectly still. The exact same figure from the webcam. The exact same person outside his dorm. To this day, students at the university still talk about strange emergency alerts that occasionally appear during heavy rainstorms. Most disappear within minutes. Most are dismissed as technical errors. But every few years, someone receives a message warning them to avoid the Eastern Bridge. And according to those who've seen him, the individual never chases anyone, never speaks, never moves. He simply stands there, watching, waiting, as though he's expecting somebody to finally acknowledge that he never left campus at all. Story 4. The figure in the lecture theater. University lecture halls are strange places after dark. During the day, they're filled with hundreds of students, conversations, and noise. But once everyone leaves, those enormous rooms become silent, empty spaces where even the smallest sound feels amplified. The following incident took place at a university in Oregon, and according to the campus employee involved, one lecture theater continued receiving visitors long after classes had ended. 23-year-old Mason Reed worked as a student technician for the university's audiovisual department. His responsibilities were simple: lock classrooms, check equipment, report maintenance issues. Most of the work happened late at night after students went home. The job was boring, predictable, and usually finished before midnight. Except for one building, Harper Hall, the oldest academic building on campus. 3 floors, endless corridors, and a massive lecture theater capable of holding nearly 400 students. The room sat at the very end of the 2nd floor, officially known as Theater B. Students avoided it at night, mostly because of rumors, stories about strange noises, lights turning on by themselves, shadows in the upper rows. Mason ignored all of it until November of 2024. One Wednesday evening, he arrived shortly after 11 p.m. to complete his routine checks. The building appeared completely empty. Every classroom was locked, every hallway silent. The only remaining task involved shutting down the projector system inside Theater B. As Mason approached the large wooden doors, he noticed something unusual. Light spilled from beneath them. That shouldn't have been possible. The last lecture ended hours earlier. Assuming a professor had forgotten something, Mason pushed the doors open. The enormous theater sat almost entirely dark. Only the projector illuminated the screen at the front. Rows upon rows of empty seats climbed toward the back wall. No students. No professors. Nobody. Mason stepped inside. The projector displayed a blank blue screen. Nothing strange, until he looked upward. Near the highest row of seats, someone was sitting alone, completely still, dark clothing, hands folded in their lap. The distance made details impossible to identify, but there was definitely a person there. Mason called out. No response. He tried again. Nothing. The figure remained motionless. Assuming it was a student who had fallen asleep, Mason began climbing the stairs along the side aisle. The higher he climbed, the stranger the situation became. The person never reacted, never turned, never moved. Halfway up, Mason stopped, because he realized something unsettling. The emergency lights illuminated every seat, yet the figure appeared darker than everything around it, almost as though light itself avoided them. Still, he continued upward, only to freeze several rows below. The seat was empty, completely empty. Nobody sat there. No bags, no books, nothing. Confused, Mason looked around. The entire upper section remained deserted. Then he heard a sound behind him, a chair folding shut, slowly, deliberately. The noise came from somewhere near the front of the theater, and when Mason turned around, someone now sat in the very first row, directly facing the projector screen. And when Mason turned around, someone now sat in the very first row, directly facing the projector screen. His blood ran cold. Only seconds earlier, the front rows had been empty. He was certain of it. Yet now, beneath the faint blue glow of the projector, a figure occupied one of the seats. Dark jacket, hands folded neatly together, motionless. The distance made it impossible to identify any facial features. Mason immediately hurried down the stairs. His footsteps echoed throughout the massive theater. Still, the person didn't react. No movement, no acknowledgement, nothing. Trying to stay calm, Mason called out, "The building closes at midnight. Are you okay?" Silence. The figure remained facing forward, as though completely absorbed by the blank projection screen. By the time Mason reached the lower rows, a strange feeling settled over him. The room felt colder. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. Enough to make the silence uncomfortable. He approached within 20 feet. Still no response. Then, quietly, the projector flickered. The blue screen disappeared. For less than a second, an old photograph appeared instead. A lecture hall filled with students. Hundreds of them. The image quality looked ancient. Grainy. Yellowed. Gone almost instantly. The blank screen returned. Mason stopped walking, because sitting in the front row, the figure had vanished. The seat was empty. Every muscle in his body tightened. He scanned the room. Nothing. Nobody. No footsteps. No sounds. No possible way someone could have left without passing him. Then a voice echoed softly from above. "Is the exam still tomorrow?" The words were calm, ordinary, but completely out of place. Mason slowly looked toward the upper rows. The figure sat there again, exactly where he'd first seen it, motionless, watching the screen. Panic began replacing confusion. He backed toward the exit doors. The voice spoke once more, slightly louder this time. Did they postpone the exam? The question made no sense. There were no exams scheduled in Harper Hall. Not anymore. At least not in that room. Mason pushed through the doors and immediately contacted campus security. 2 officers arrived within minutes. Together, they entered Theater B. The room stood completely empty. No figure, no lights, no projector, nothing. The officers searched every row, every exit, every storage closet. No sign that anyone had been inside. Embarrassed, Mason nearly convinced himself exhaustion had gotten the better of him, until one of the officers stopped near the projector controls. Resting on the podium was a single examination paper, yellowed with age. The date printed across the top read, December 14th, 1987. The course title matched a class no longer offered by the university, and written across the bottom, in red ink, were 2 words, "Failed to attend." The following day, curiosity got the better of Mason. He visited the university archives. After several hours of searching old campus newspapers, he found something unsettling. In December of 1987, a graduate student named Thomas Walker disappeared. He'd been preparing for final examinations inside Theater B. According to classmates, he stayed late into the night studying alone. He never returned home. No evidence. No suspects. No explanation. The case eventually faded into obscurity. Attached to the article was a photograph. Mason's stomach immediately dropped, because Thomas wore the exact same dark jacket and sat in the exact same seat near the upper rows. Terrified, Mason requested different assignments. He refused to enter Harper Hall after dark, but stories continued spreading among campus employees. Cleaning staff reported hearing chairs folding shut in empty rooms. Security officers occasionally found old examination papers resting on podiums. And every December, during finals week, students studying late in Theater B sometimes noticed someone sitting near the back rows, completely motionless, hands folded together, watching the screen. If approached, the figure never acts aggressively, never stands, never moves closer. It simply asks one quiet question: is the exam still tomorrow? And according to those who've answered, the seat is always empty by the time they turn around to leave. Story 5. The Night Walker. College campuses never truly sleep. Even at 3 in the morning, there are always students studying, walking back from late shifts, or grabbing food before another long night of assignments. But every university seems to have one story about a person who appears after midnight and follows the same route every single night. The following incident took place at a university in Arizona, and according to multiple witnesses, nobody knows who the Night Walker really was. 22-year-old Jacob Miller worked part-time for campus maintenance during his senior year. Most of his shifts ended around 1 a.m. After clocking out, he walked across campus to reach his apartment near the southern entrance. The route remained simple: past the engineering building, through the central courtyard, then alongside an old athletics field. Normally, other students occupied the pathways, but during winter break, the university felt almost abandoned. One January evening, shortly after 1:30 a.m., Jacob noticed someone walking ahead of him. A young man, dark coat, backpack, hands in his pockets. Nothing unusual. The stranger moved at a steady pace beneath the streetlights. Jacob thought nothing of it, until he realized something strange. The man never changed direction, never entered a building, never stopped. He simply continued walking the exact same loop around campus. Every corner, every path, every crossing, again and again. Jacob eventually reached his apartment and forgot about it. The following night, however, he saw the same person. Same clothes, same backpack, same pace, walking the exact same route. The coincidence felt odd. By the third night, curiosity took over. Jacob checked the time. 1:32 a.m., almost identical to the previous evenings. And right on schedule, the stranger appeared from behind the engineering building. Walking, always walking, never looking around, never acknowledging anyone, just following the same route. One of Jacob's co-workers noticed him too. According to her, students occasionally joked about the Night Walker. Nobody knew his name. Nobody knew where he lived. People simply accepted that he appeared after midnight and disappeared before sunrise. Still, Jacob found something unsettling about him, because despite seeing him repeatedly, he had never once witnessed him entering or leaving a dormitory. One Friday evening, Jacob decided to follow him. The man crossed the central courtyard, past the library, circled the athletics field, then returned toward the engineering department. Exactly as before. 40 minutes passed. The route never changed. Neither did his pace. Eventually, Jacob called out. No response. The stranger kept walking. Jacob moved closer. Still nothing. Then, beneath a street lamp near the old humanities building, the man finally stopped. For the first time all week. Slowly, he turned around and quietly asked a single question. What year is it? The words caught Jacob completely off guard. He laughed nervously, told him it was 2026. The man's expression changed. Confusion, disbelief, almost fear. Then, without another word, he turned back around and continued walking the exact same route as though nothing had happened. Then, without another word, he turned back around and continued walking the exact same route as though nothing had happened. Jacob stood frozen beneath the streetlight. The interaction lasted less than 10 seconds. Yet something about the man's reaction felt deeply unsettling. Not confusion, not forgetfulness, genuine shock, as though the answer had been impossible. The following evening, Jacob told several co-workers about the encounter. To his surprise, none of them laughed. One older maintenance supervisor simply grew quiet. He asked Jacob a strange question. Did he ask what year it was? Jacob immediately nodded. The supervisor sighed, because apparently that wasn't the first time. Over the years, multiple students reported hearing the exact same question, always from the same person, always near the humanities building, always after 1 a.m. And according to university folklore, nobody should ever answer. Naturally, Jacob wanted to know why. The supervisor hesitated, then explained. Nearly 20 years earlier, a student named Ryan Fletcher disappeared during winter break. Ryan was known for taking long walks around campus late at night while preparing for exams. One evening, he left the library around midnight. Security cameras captured him walking his usual route, but he never returned to his dorm. No body, no evidence, nothing. The only unusual detail involved the final footage. According to campus police, Ryan appeared to stop beneath a street lamp near the humanities building, turn towards someone off camera, and ask a question. The audio never worked. Nobody knew what he said. The case remained unsolved. That weekend, Jacob couldn't stop thinking about it. So, against his better judgment, he decided to follow the night walker again. At exactly 1:30 a.m., the figure appeared. Same dark coat, same backpack, same steady pace. Jacob stayed several yards behind. The route remained identical. Engineering building, central courtyard, athletics field, humanities hall. Again and again. Nearly an hour passed. The man never slowed, never hesitated. Then, as they approached the old humanities building once more, something changed. The night walker stopped. Completely. Without turning around, he quietly spoke. "I missed my exam, didn't I?" Jacob felt a chill run through him. The voice sounded exhausted, defeated. He didn't know what to say. Several seconds passed. Then the man slowly turned. For the first time, Jacob saw his face clearly. The young man looked completely ordinary. Early 20s, clean-shaven, tired eyes, yet his clothing looked strangely outdated. The backpack, the jacket, even the university logo stitched onto the sleeve belonged to an older design no longer used. The man stared at Jacob, then asked one final question. "Did my parents ever find out what happened?" Jacob couldn't answer. Before he could speak, headlights from a passing security vehicle swept across the pathway. The light lasted only a moment, but when darkness returned, the night walker was gone, completely gone. No footsteps, no running, nothing, only an empty sidewalk. The following morning, Jacob visited the university archives. After several hours of searching old newspapers, he found a photograph attached to Ryan Fletcher's missing persons case. His stomach immediately dropped, because it was him. The same face, the same backpack, the same dark coat, the exact same person Jacob had spoken with. Ryan had vanished in 2007, 19 years earlier. Terrified, Jacob never walked home alone again. But stories about the night walker continued spreading across campus. Students reported seeing him during winter break, always after midnight, always following the same route, and almost always alone. Some claimed he ignored everyone. Others claimed he occasionally stopped beneath the humanities building and asked what year it was. Campus security officially dismisses the stories as urban legends. Yet veteran employees know better. Because every January, Security cameras sometimes capture a lone figure walking empty pathways long after everyone else has gone home. The footage always ends the same way. The figure turns a corner, disappears from view, and never appears on the next camera, as though he simply stops existing between one streetlight and the next. College campuses are meant to be places of learning, friendship, and new beginnings. But when the crowds disappear and the buildings grow silent, some stories refuse to leave with the students who created them. If these campus encounters unsettled you, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and let me know which story disturbed you the most. And if you ever find yourself walking across an empty campus after midnight, remember one thing. Sometimes, not everyone you pass is still trying to get home.